1 in 5 councillors have received threats of violence or a death threat, survey finds. We're going to read into this more from Sky News, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Sky News with the headline that 1 in 5 councillors have received threats of violence or a death threat, surveys find. Some 1,734 councillors have reported to a survey from a local government association, which is calling for changes from the UK government to protect local politicians. This includes allowing councillors to withhold their addresses from the public. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. I think first and foremost, I think the fact that their addresses are made public, I think that's incredibly dangerous. I think politicians need to be allowed to have their privacy. That's the first step. The second thing here is there are lots of things to take into consideration of why people are doing this. Now, first and foremost, let's just call it what it is. Anyone making any kind of threats or violence or death threats towards anybody is completely entirely unacceptable. And you and I all know, you and I completely agree with that. I'm pretty sure anyone watching this video will have 100% in agreement with me that nobody should anyway feel threatened to doing their job. There is no excuses for it. But we also know that there are many, many people who are really struggling right now and who are desperate for their councils, wherever they may be, whether it's in England or in Wales, for help. And many of them are just not receiving it. Many of them are really struggling. Now, prime example of this is a lack of housing for councils that councils have. We have a lot of situations where lots of single mothers with children, or impregnated ones, or ones with kids, or families turn up to the councils asking for a home, whether they've lost their house, whether it's pay rent, whatever the situation may be, and the councils are struggling to find them a home. And it's even worse, especially if you're a single man and you go to the council after you've lost everything, they will never get you a home. Because you are not a priority in any way, shape or form. Women take priority, children take priority, families take priority. And if you're somebody who just happens to be in that situation, and it's no fault of their own, because sometimes it could be all sorts of reasons why somebody's fallen into that situation. Sometimes that frustration, depression, and emotions that can get to people, whether it's the mental side of it, can turn into violence and death threats. That doesn't excuse any way whatsoever for them to be able to do it. But when we have this cost of living crisis, and you see and you hear consistently the stories that people who are struggling to get by, there's a part of you that understands why people turn their anger and frustration on others, because they don't know where else to turn. They've got nothing left. They don't know what they're supposed to do, and when the authorities that they're supposed to go to, that's supposed to help them, turns them away, the state turns them away when they're supposed to be there to help them. Instead of charities picking up on the state's behalf, it's supposed to be the state's supposed to be looking after its people. It's a fundamental failure. Now, I'm not stating in any way, shape or form that councillors don't care about people. I generally believe they do. The problem is that they've been hamstrung for 14 years. I've repeated time and time again on this channel about the 14 years of austerity. And you guys and those who have been deep into news and politics for long enough know that people are struggling. Know that we have more food banks than McDonald's. Know that people are struggling to get by. And it's understandable for people to feel that frustration and anger. And sadly, that frustration and anger gets turned on innocent people. And I generally believe this when I say this. Many councils are literally hamstrung in this situation. And as someone who's used to working retail, when somebody returns a product and they didn't bring their receipt and it's not working or whatnot, and they kick up a stauncher fuss, and I have to tell them that we can't help them because it's not a product that's sold in our store, for example, or somewhere else or whatever, and I'm the one that's getting the grief and the anger, even though it's not me, it's company policy, but I'm the one that takes the heat. And this is exactly what seems to be happening here. Councillors are taking the heat on behalf of the government, ideally the Conservative government, and the damage that they've left them in. So similar, it's not the, I know it's not the same analogy, but you can get the point there. You know, if you're somebody who gets berated and gets told off and gets shouted at when you are not ultimately responsible, it can really hurt you detrimentally. And I really do feel for these councils, but I do also understand the sense of what some people have said in the past about councils not looking after their budgets as well. But even so, there's still no excuse here for this kind of violence or death threats towards them. So let's read more into these numbers, you guys. So 1 in 5 councillors in England and Wales have received death threats or threats of violence according to a new survey. The findings from the Local Government Association, the LGA, comes as the group calls for the UK government to take more action to protect councillors and other local political figures. Almost 3/4 of those who have answered the LGA survey, 73%, said they have felt intimidated or experienced abuse in the past 12 months. So 3/4 who have experienced this survey, according to Sky News. 73% said they felt intimidated or experienced abuse in the past 12 months. That's frightening. More than 73%. And 49% said they felt abuse had become worse in the last year, so it's gotten worse over time. Of the 1,734 respondents who make up 10% of all councillors in England and Wales, 22% said they have received a threat of violence during their time in the role. Some 23% of those said they have had a death threat, amounting to a total of 5% of all local politicians. However, the number of councillors who felt at risk in the past year, 70%, is lower than last year when it was at 82%. So there's been a slight reduction there. But still, it's still way too high. The LGA is a national membership body for local authorities and works on behalf of its members' councils to support, promote and improve local government. He is calling for the UK government to bring in changes to ensure safety for local politicians, including allowing them to avoid publishing their home addresses. Now, I can understand some people might say, well, there is some people who argue that as politicians we should know where they live. I disagree. We're talking about local levels here, and this is for a security point of view. They should not need to disclose where they live. The association also wants a permanent governing body to monitor, assess and address abuse, intimidation and safety of local elected politicians and candidates. Here's the other thing as well. You don't need to know their home address. You know where they work. You know where they work. So why do you need to know where they live? Like, for me, that's just a big warning sign for me. I don't think that should be right in any way, shape or form. But I can also some people saying, well, should we do this for all politicians and MPs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Councillor Maureen Olivan, chair of the LGA's Civility in Public Life Steering Group, says these results are troubling. She said that they highlight the concerns of the safety and the well-being of councillors, and also show how violent intimidation can correspond to our democracy as they discourage people from taking up public office and speaking fairly on vital issues. This is a very good point here about encouraging more people to work in the public sector. How are you supposed to get more people to join and work and be a part of the public sector if they're feeling threatened or intimidated in any way, shape or form? It's supposed to be a job. It's supposed to be working for the state. Should be something you should be really proud of, being a part of something that actually makes a difference to people's lives. But if all you're going to get is constant abuse, intimidation, death threats and whatnot, you're not exactly going to be keen on that job, regardless of what the pay is. Ms. Olivan added, people must be able to represent the community's safety and without fear. Poor communities doesn't just impact the individual, it hurts everyone in communities, reducing the opportunity for open debates on important local issues. This has got to stop. We need government to act decisively to ensure high levels of abuse do not become an acceptable part of public life, and that councillors are safe and confident as they carry out their vital elected roles, working to represent their communities. A spokesperson for the Housing Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government says violence and intimidation has no place in politics, whether at the national or local level. Local councillors work tirelessly for their communities and deserve the right to go about their work in safety and security. We will work hard to tackle the abhorrent abuse and hatred in some of them have had to face. And I generally hope so. I hope so. Obviously, that's what the spokesperson has said there. But time will tell, obviously, if that changes. But, you know, it is going... If this Labour government is to make a difference, and that is the thing, is this Labour government going to make a difference? It is going to be a question. Are they going to build more houses? Are they going to provide more funding for councils? Are they going to invest more in public services? All these things that we don't know what's going to happen. People's lives have got to improve. And if we don't see those lives improve, people will turn their anger and hatred to somebody for their problems, as they've been doing for quite a few years now. There has to be a reaction. If this government does not get to grip with this, people will kick them out with their votes. People need to see it, and I really do hope these councils do get protections they need, but they're also able to do their jobs without fear of intimidation and death threats as well. And it is a very difficult job, especially the pressures that they are under. And they are under immense pressures. I know it's not easy, and I can understand people if people say things about the councils, about certain councillors, and how they've treated them on phones and whatnot. I can totally understand some people have different experiences. That's totally fine if you want to put them in the comments. That's fine. But there still does not give any right yet to threats of violence or death threats in any way, shape, or form to them. What do you guys think? What do you guys make of this survey about councillors receiving threats of violence or death threats? Are you surprised by this survey? Do you think it's far too high, or are you not surprised at all? Let me know your thoughts and more on this down in the comments section below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here on this channel, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.